should recognize my colleague Barry Mizuno, who I think most of you know very well. But thank you all for coming to this forum this evening, or this afternoon. I'd like to introduce you to a finalist for the position of President of the University of Hawaii. And this is Lieutenant General of U.S. Army retired Francis Weircinski. He served our country for over 34 years. Frank will talk for, say, 20, 30 minutes and then take questions from the audience. You have index cards that have been distributed around in front of you, and you're welcome to add something there. We'll also be taking questions that we email from those watching on the web today. All forums are being recorded and available for later viewing on our website. We've asked the finalists to start with a 20, 30-minute presentation on the following topics. First of all, 1, who you are and why you would want to be president. 2, thoughts on 3 important issues of the university. Access to education, importance of research, and the university as an economic engine forward. And so I'd like to present to you Frank Weircinski.
Figure out how to do this without electrocuting and stuff. Aloha. Aloha. Good evening, and thank you for coming out this evening. I know it's incredibly difficult to do that. It's a Friday night. And particularly here, we've got exams coming up. The students are busy, the faculty is extremely busy, the administration, the staff. It just seems to be the time that this is when this is occurring. And again, thank you for this opportunity, because this is incredibly important. It's important that you hear from both David and myself. And I want to make it very clear up front. This is not a campaign. This is not an election. This is not choosing or picking. These are 2 individuals who have been asked to serve. And they come from different backgrounds, and they approach things differently in terms of their thought process and the way they have determined themselves. And it's up to you to determine that. But it's important that you hear exactly from us who we are and how we've come to this point today and in this process. And then talk a little bit about vision and what we see. And I know that David had an opportunity to do that this morning, and I'm very proud and honored to be here with you today. Let me just say up front, I am Frank Weircinski. My wife sends her apologies. She's at a nurse's pinning this evening. She has been to every one of these, but could not come this evening because she had made this promise to do the nurse pinning for brand new nurses. That is her profession. But she sends her aloha and mahalo for being here. 34 years ago, we made our first married home here in Hawaii. And Janine started her profession as a labor and delivery nurse at Wahiawa General Hospital. And started a love affair with Hawaii. I keep getting reminded by Janine every time, why did we not buy that house then? Instead of now, when we have decided to make this our final home as a married couple, as we come back to our friends and to the place that we love. I am the grandson of Polish immigrants who came to northeastern Pennsylvania many years ago, coal miners. Janine is the granddaughter of Italian and Irish immigrants who came to northeast Pennsylvania. We're high school sweethearts. And our grandparents worked the mines and moved the coal by rail, places like Bethlehem Steel and Pittsburgh Steel. And my dad was the first one in our family to graduate from college. He became a pharmacist. That's a big family, UH Hilo. I got to watch him graduate from college. And Janine's dad was the first to graduate in his class from college. So getting an education was very important to them. And forwarding us and sacrificing for us because we didn't have much. Back then, as I was watching my dad go to school, Polish is actually my first language. I had to learn English later because my dad was going to school, my mom worked in the hospital, I grew up with my grandparents. You have to speak what your grandparents speak. But I learned that. But our parents understood the incredible importance of education, and they sacrificed for us. And they made choices, and they didn't do the things that they should have done to give us opportunities, and they sent us to the best high school that we could go to. And we became educated, and it became a love affair with that, and now I'm very proud to say that every one of my siblings has had the opportunity to do that, and every one of Janine's siblings. And it's something that we are very passionate about. But as I said, we came here first, started our home, continued on with the career, and then decided it was time to retire, and I wasn't given much of a choice, but you didn't have to turn my arm very hard. We were going to stay in Hawaii and make it our home. And I started a business of trying to bring people here because of where I had been in the Asia Pacific and trying to incorporate them to seeing the goodness about Hawaii and what was happening here in the near future. And I want to talk a little bit about that here towards the end, about really what is happening in our near future, and why this is such an important decision, and why this is going to be important. Along that path, and along that road, I developed who I am, and I developed, the inside of Frank Weircinski, what was important to me, what I thought was important about living my life the way I wanted to, and living the way that it meant something good to us inside, and I learned from people. Over the years, just like you, well, let me put it this way, I don't believe leaders are born. I believe leaders are made, but I believe they're made from the time that they're born. And we are influenced initially by our parents and our grandparents. We're influenced by our teachers, mentors, coaches, friends. In the last 8 years, I have been blessed to be influenced by my native Hawaiian friends who have taught me great things about who I am and this great host culture that we have here in Hawaii. And every week, they teach me something. So everyone has had a play in formulating this entity or this essence. And it's developed over time. And because the position of president of a university or president, CEO of an organization or a system has to enforce leadership and has to be a leader, I think it's important that you know something about me and leadership and what makes me me. When I first got my first position of leadership and had authority and responsibility, I was asked to sit down and write a leadership philosophy. And I dutifully did that. And it was 16 pages long. I thought it was magnificent. No one else did. And quite frankly, rightfully so. Because it was everything I had read about leadership, or everything that I had, heard about leadership, but it was nothing about what I had experienced about leadership. And you really have to walk that path to really understand the issues that occur with that and how you're going to react to those issues, because you never know until that situation occurs. That has been a process of 57 years. My last career has been a process of 34 years. But I started to find something out as I started doing these leadership philosophies. Every time I took another job, and I got more responsibility, and it started to include diplomatic discussions, and then congressional discussions, and then business discussions. Every time I did that, my leadership philosophy started getting cut in half each time. To the point where, when I had my last position, it was down to 2 sentences. Now, quite frankly, I had either forgotten a whole heck of a lot of stuff, or I was starting to figure out exactly what was important. What was really critical about working in this human domain and leading a group of great individuals to accomplish a vision, to accomplish a goal. And I'm going to share that with you today. The first thing that I learned, that if you want anyone to follow you, if you want people to do the things that are important when it's hard, to do the things that are important when you're not there, to do the things that are right when you're not there, you have to start that process early. And the first thing you have to do is you have to treat everybody with dignity and respect. And that's across race, gender, nationality. You have to treat everyone with dignity and respect. I mean, think about that just a bit. If we did that in every endeavor that we had, we wouldn't have sexual assault, sexual harassment. We wouldn't have equal opportunity complaints. We wouldn't have discrimination. We wouldn't have most crime, particularly crime against persons. I don't know if there's any lawyers in the auditorium, but it would reduce the amount of lawyers we need. But more importantly, it would be better of how we treated people. And I found that when you did that, and when you treated people with dignity and respect, they will follow you anyway, because they trust you. And it's the beginning of what's most important, and that's the development of trust in leadership. The second thing that it came down to is when you have to make a decision, and when it's a hard decision, and it may not be the popular decision, do the right thing. Do what's honorable. Do what's legal, moral, ethical, and for the greater good, not for yourself. And if you can say yes to all of those things, your decision is probably right. And that was it. That was the end of my leadership philosophy after all of that, which is why I can't write a book on leadership, because it's too short. But also involved in that were the things that I saw about leadership, the tenets of leadership. Because we all do this, either consciously or subconsciously. We're influenced by others, and we grow up with that, and we're doing this throughout our life. We're seeing people who are leaders or who are mentors, and we're saying, boy, you know, I really want to be like that. I really like that trait, and you put it in your bag. And you say, someday, I really want to act that way. I want to be that way. Conversely, you've grown up and seen people act a different way, and you say, you know, I don't want to be that way. I don't want to have that trait, and you put that in the other bag. And you're adding and subtracting to those bags all of your life, whether you realize it or not. And I've got my 5 now that I'm settled with right now, and I want to tell you what those are, because they will explain to you who I am. When I see great leaders, and when I see people that I want to be like, the first thing I see in them is their character. What are they like? What's their character like? Are they loyal? Are they moral? Are they ethical? Do they have integrity? And that's what draws me to people like that. And that's who I want to follow. And therefore, that's who I want to be like. And it's on the top of my list for that reason, because I would hope that all of my decisions that I make are based on character and are based on those tenets that I placed there. The second thing I see when I see great leaders is I see passion. Leaders have got to be imbued with passion and positivity. It's infectious to those that we lead. It sends the message that what we're doing is good. On the same aspect, negativity, people who are constantly negative pass on the same thing. It's a cycle of negativity and depression and demoralization. And the organization and the people never get to go forward because it's not positive. I always tell leaders that have worked for me, if you find yourself in front of people who look depressed, disorganized, have low morale, and don't want to do their job correctly, the first thing you really need to do is look in the mirror. And if what you see is the same thing coming back at you, it's time to quit. I've also told them that when you lose your passion for what you're doing, stop. Stop doing it because you're hurting other people as a leader. The third thing I saw great leaders have is courage. And I'm not talking about physical courage. I'm talking about moral, ethical courage. I'm talking about the kind of courage that it takes to make a tough decision when it may not be popular. It's the right thing to do, but it may not be popular. But it has to be accomplished. And somebody has to make the decision. That's a hard thing to do. Particularly when people are going to say, oh, I'm not going to like you anymore. Or, I'm going to find it difficult, to be around you anymore. The leader has to make the decision. He doesn't have a choice. The thing is making that decision that's right. And then being able to do that takes something inside to do that. The fourth thing, leaders are selfless. They stand up there alone. And they stand up there and they assume responsibility. Some of my native Hawaiian friends have taught me early on, taking responsibility. And being able to stand up for your people when they make mistakes. Stand at the door when the wolf comes to call and say, I'm responsible, the buck stops here. Take it on me. Let my people work it through. And then we'll figure out what happened and we'll make it work. And we'll fix it and we'll continue on. It's not that crisis never occurs. Crisis occurs every day. And it's not that you're going to have crisis in your organization. It's how you deal with crisis that defines us. In the same breath, being the champion of your people's success and passing their victories on to them and putting them in the limelight. That's what great leaders do. And they don't put the spotlight on them for the victories and the good things. They take the burden of things that need to have responsibility. And finally, the last thing is a great leader needs to be in awe of those they are charged to lead, and they need to love them. I have had a great opportunity to be on a great many campuses this last week. And you can see it in the eyes and in the feelings of the faculty of how they are so impassioned with their students. They care. They have such great education and have so much to give. And I've seen it in them. You have to be in awe of that. That is inspiring to me when I see them like that, when I see you like that, with that awe and that passion. It's inspiring. We have to be in awe of our students. We have students that I have met that are working 2 and 3 jobs. Some have children. Some are coming back to school to better themselves. Some may be coming from very disadvantaged places. Some may be coming from prison. But they're trying to be better. You have to be in awe of that. That's inspiring. It is what we do. And it's certainly what you do. And it's energizing to be around. And I appreciate that. Those are my tenets. And that is where I've come to this point. So now, why? About 9 or 10 months ago now, it's been a while, a group of people that I respected very much, I've known for years, a lot of friends at the university, came to me and said, "No, you're retired, and you enjoy going out on that fishing boat, but if you were nominated, would you accept the nomination and would you go through the selection process?" And I'll be very honest, I had to think long and hard about that. I was retired. I had not grown up in academia. I had, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years, certainly grown to the president, CEO level job of all the same issues that everyone has at that level of making decisions and working the issues and the resources and the prioritization to make their organizations function as well as possible and to get everything down to those who are making it happen. But I didn't know if that was possible. So I started to do my research again in my study, and I started to see what the president of a system does. And I started to see who past presidents were, how they were selected, what they did. I started to read the books by some past presidents, who runs the university, the art and politics of academic governance. And I started to bring this all in, and I started to try to equate that to what I had been doing. And I looked at the issues. And I started to see that no matter whether you were in the industrial domain, the business model domain, the academic domain, the governmental domain, the issues at that level of president, system president, and CEO all encompassed the same domain that had the issues and the challenges, and that's that we were all in the human domain. And it was all about the people. And you're influencing people, and you're getting people the resources that they need, and you're trying to help prioritize to make sure that those resources get to where they need to be quickly enough so that they can make a difference. And I said, okay, I understand that. And then I also said, okay, not from inside the system. And that could be a risk. But then I really looked at it and I said, okay, how do you turn a risk into a positive? I am not from inside the system. I bring an open, wide, clean view. I don't have the burden of the legacy of how past decisions have been made. I don't have any bias either way of any particular campus or institution. And I bring fresh, new ideas. New open ideas. And you look at what's happening in the world, and every time you see that, and then you combine it with the fact that every time you get fresh new ideas, you pick up efficiencies that maybe people don't see because they've been focused, and they've been living in a legacy. and it becomes a way to improve the institution and to help the people who are throughout the institution doing their magnificent job. And then, of course, there also came, as every Hawaiian citizen, I read the paper every day. I had the opportunity to read the paper now that I'm retired. And it got to the point where every day there was something negative about the university in the paper, and I was getting upset. Why is this happening? And it seemed like everything was on a negative cycle. I call it a bleeding swimmer in a shark tank. And the first thing that has to happen is you have to stop the bleeding. And we have to turn the negativity into all the positive things that are happening. You see it every day. I've seen it. It's incredible what's happening here. It's incredible what's happening throughout the entire system. It's not getting told to the public. It's not getting out to the community. Believe me, I've lived that. Facts not getting out. It's important that we turn that and show all the positive things that are happening in this system. It's incredible. And finally, the last piece, a piece of why I started a business here, is what's happening globally. The world is coming to the Asia Pacific. That is happening. This is the century of the Asia Pacific. The economics of it are just growing. All the people of the Asia Pacific, those nations that see what's happening, they're educating their people. They have the resources. And it's incredible how exponential it's growing. And Hawaii needs to be the center of gravity of that. It has such an opportunity for not only to be the economic engines, but the center of research for all of the Asia Pacific of what's important to them. I've been to almost every one of those countries out there. They have great concerns about climate change, about reusable energy, about agriculture. How are we going to feed this? About pushing too many in the waste of natural resources. They have concerns about where we live in terms of natural disasters. How can the research benefit the predictability of those? How can the research help in the recovery of those? How can the research help in the human condition of that? They're concerned about medical and health, just like we are, and the pandemic threats that are throughout the Asia Pacific. It's what could cause that to stop. Think about Hawaii and the university of what it could do for that. It takes us to be forward-thinking. It forces us to start to think about how we prepare our sons and daughters to be part of that economic engine. It forces us to start to think how we make it better and how we bring the world to Hawaii. Wouldn't it be great? We are already such a diversified society here. Already such a diversified society. Wouldn't it be great to anchor our native Hawaiian host culture with all the rest of that diversity and send it out to the Asia Pacific?
No, we're aloha.
What would it be about bringing the international here, international people, to see the aloha, to see what we are about?
So they can practice bombing in Puhakaloa?
It's so important to us to make sure that we do all of this now. And we have a window of opportunity. We have about 10 years, which is why this is such a critically important time. The next 5 and 10 years are going to define where we are and who we are. If you so choose that And if I'm so honored to be selected as president of UH, I intend to put all my effort into ensuring that we move forward, because the University of Hawaii could be the jewel of that Asia Pacific. And that's where I would see it in the next 10 years. If not selected to be the president, that too is okay. Because I will still, my wife and I will spend as much time as we can in service to Hawaii and doing everything that we can to also help in this next decade. I've taken enough of your time by talking. I think it's important now that you ask the questions that are important to you. And I look forward to it. I thank you for your great dignity and respect during this. I thank you for your aloha. And I look forward to talking to you about your questions. Please.
Thank you, Frank. As you can imagine, we have a number of questions here. And it's a broad range, some of which I've heard you answer in the past. Let's start with this one. Detractors state you are not an educator. Share how your experience leading the 80,000 plus troops of the 25th Infantry Division qualifies you to lead as UH president.
Well, we first have to clear it out. There's not 80,000 troops. There's about 80,000 troop army in the Asia Pacific. I can't talk about before. I certainly don't talk to the military about what the military does now, but I can talk about what I learned in that time period of that senior general officership period. And there's sometimes a misperception about the maturation of general officer corps. You're not down at the tactical level anymore. You're not at the operational level. You're strategic, just like a president and CEO of an organization. And you go to continued education in classes, values, ethics, legal. We go to the Flagler School of Business in North Carolina. We go one-on-one with presidents and CEOs of major corporations, CFOs, HR. All the things that presidents and CEOs need to understand to lead an organization, to get the resources and the priorities to the people who make the difference, to the experts who run the operations, who run the organization. I would take that of what I have in lateral conjunction with the chancellors, the faculty senate, the union, which is all important, the students, the staff, the administration, and we would look to now what's required. The president needs to be outside the system, making sure that everyone inside the system has what they need to accomplish their job. The faculty has what they need to teach. Each campus has different issues, and they change constantly. I've had great opportunity to see each of these campuses, or many of these campuses, over the last week, and they're all different. They're all serving different communities. And they can't be treated the same because they all have different issues. And looking at that and helping them to prioritize and to resource would be my mantra of how to get them what they need to do their job, how to work with the legislature, both in Washington, at the state, in each one of the communities, work with the media relations to get to that positivity, and to work with each of the leadership on the campus to make sure, first, I understood, and secondly, that I assessed properly. That's how I would utilize what I learned to try to help.
Thank you. Universities are about student success. What do you know about the underrepresented minority students in the state of Hawaii? What are the challenges that they face? And how can you address these? What's your experience in promoting student success in higher education?
had really good discussions with many of the chancellors about what their issues are on each one of the campuses, particularly in those arenas. The high cost of tuition is hurting. It's hurting people to be able to pay for that. It hurts our accessibility. The remedial training that we may have to utilize to get people to the next level is causing them to spend more money and to spend more time at the college level just to get to a point where they can continue on. And we are underrepresented. Our host culture is underrepresented in many of our institutions. Our other cultures are underrepresented. We have to come to grips with how to make that more accessible to them. How do we do that? We have to think of more innovative ways of teaching. And I have to use you as the experts. You have these ideas. You have this great input. Please tell people how to do this. How do we, I was at Maui College yesterday. They have a great outreach program with, so many ways of reaching people on Lanai and Molokai and on the other sides of Maui. How do we incorporate that more effectively? How do we bring that into our mantra? How do we utilize past experience? And maybe give some credit for that. And then how do we make it affordable for the students? This has to come from all of you into how we can do this. But the intellectual power is out there. And we can do this. But you're the experts. And I'm desperately trying to listen to how we can make that better. They are telling me they need help. And I would like to help them do that.
The university has several unions that its employees belong to. There are Board of Regents appointee positions, the UHPA and HDA Unit 8. What are your views on UH autonomy for its civil service employees?
We are in the unionized world. And union presidents, union directors that I have been able to talk to are all asking the same thing too. They want open and transparent communication so that we can help settle problems before they become issues that can't be settled, and we have to go to litigation, and we have to go into other areas where we could have done this if we were just open and we talked and we communicated early on. I think it would be the same thing in the civil system. I don't know the rules and I don't know the laws of how to do that yet. And I would be remiss and not right if I were to say that should be the way it is now. But I know that I have worked with unions before. I know that they're an important element of our workforce. And I know that if you keep open, constant communication and transparency, we can work all of these things together. And it can be a better system.
As you can imagine, there are a number of questions here regarding your military background. You've not been hesitant in approaching those you've asked. You stated at the Manoa Forum, once a military man, always a military man. And do you see a possible conflict between your life in that culture and top-down orders as compared to university culture of tolerance and exploring all points of view where the right of dissent is protest? Are respected?
No, that's a fair question, a good question. My response to the once a military man, always a military man, and the values that you heard me talk about in my leadership. That's what I talked about. And I will always keep those values. The other thing I will tell you is I did spend a career in the United States military for 34 years. I raised my right hand and I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I make no excuse for that. I never will. To do that would be to deny the 163 friends that I personally buried. And I will never dishonor them their service, their parents, their spouses, or their children. So, people have asked, I read some interesting things like he's going to march students to class, he will be giving orders. Unfortunately, people don't, at this level, that doesn't happen. This is about finding solutions to problems. No one individual has the answers. But it takes open and transparent communication to do that. And it takes bringing everyone in. We talk about here shared governance. And I'm 100% on board because there's a lot I would need to know. From below to up. I'm looking more to get more information from below to up than sending information down. We have chancellors that are running the campuses. My focus should be external. If I'm worried about things below at the campus level, where we already have great people doing that, I'm not doing the president's job. Which should be to get the chancellors the resources, to be engaging with the legislature to get more money, to be looking at how to increase diversification, to be looking how to prioritize, to be looking at where we need to surge, to fix maintenance issues, to work budgets. That has nothing to do with giving orders. There are people giving me orders that should be telling me what to do and what they need. That's how I would see that occur. And I'd like to alleviate that part, to make sure that people understood, and I'm glad that question came so I could give you my perception. Please.
Would you share some of your thoughts on the lack of a terminal degree, your life experience there?
Sure. I never had the opportunity. I wish I did. I can tell you this story. My parents were very, I told you, passionate about that. And I didn't start at West Point. I went to college and I was a pre-med major. And was able to keep my grades extremely high, carried my loads, and then went on and had my engineering degree, took my engineering boards, thought that I would spend my commitment, and then become an engineer. It never occurred. Life changed, conditions changed. And I never had the opportunities that many of you in this room have had, and I wish I did. But then I say, when I look at that, and I know that that's not there, you're not asking me to be a professor. You're not asking me to be the dean. You're certainly not asking me to be the chancellor. You're asking the president to be the president and CEO of a corporation, of an organization. I don't know what doctor that could be. There are many, I'm sure, that would be extremely helpful in that. But I always wish I had one. Perhaps life continued, I might have that opportunity. But for what I saw, and when I did that analysis, and when I did the research, the conditions and the way that I have been trained to lead large, complex organizations with issues fit.
At this campus, as well as a community college on this island, as well as other campuses, there's a lot of programs for our host culture. And this campus has a wonderful building up Mount Hilo that just opened. Would you share your experience about the host culture and what you know about it, and perhaps any organizations that you have been involved in?
That's easy, because I just came back 2 weeks ago from being in Washington, D.C. With other supporters to support Native Hawaiian organizations on Capitol Hill, and making sure that we continue with the policies and make sure that we continue with the laws that make economic engines for our Native Hawaiians positive and productive. And I've been working with, that's part of what I do now, in the business that I'm in, working with Native Hawaiian organizations and trying to help in any way I can how to do legislative engagement on the Hill or in any way I can help. I am very blessed that I have tremendous Native Hawaiian friends. Elders, friends my age, that I've had for many years that have helped me learn. It's them that I turn to when I have an issue of something that I can't understand. And I say, how will this be perceived if I were to do this? And I ask them to teach me so that I can learn. A great friend of mine, when he said, why are you retiring in Hawaii, explained, there's a lot of sunny places to retire, but it's the host culture that brings us back to Hawaii. It's the host culture that brings us the aloha. And I am so pleased that I have my friends and what they're teaching me, and as I continue to grow and learn my home.
We have a number of community colleges in the university system. What do you see as a community college role in the general scheme of things?
I have been nothing but absolutely impressed with what I've seen in community college. I have absolutely, it's been incredible. There is such a link to the community in each one of these programs that it molds itself and it morphs itself into what's important for the individual communities. Everyone is different, and they each have different focus that meet the economic engines, the cultural engines, the purpose of where they're going. And it's so wonderful to see because everyone there is so dedicated, and there's such a strong link at the community college level with the communities. I mean, I saw it yesterday in both Kauai and Maui. I've seen it today. It's incredible. It's almost the meeting place. And that's so important because they understand, I think, the best of what those communities need and require, and how best those sons and daughters, what they need to continue to go forward. So I have been becoming more and more in awe of those who are at the community college level and what they do. And I thanked them tremendously yesterday and told them no matter what happens, please continue to do what you're doing because you are incredible. Incredible people.
Some people might say that the current state of University of Hawaii could be classified as an example of VUCA. This is an acronym. Could you please tell us the primary causes of this and how your experience would help you address this? And VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Coined by the military in 1990.
Really?
Very ambiguous.
All I can tell you is it's part of that what I said about there's a disconnect happening. I see on Oahu of the community to the college. People seem like they're reading the negative things and they're not getting the truth and they're not getting facts about all the great things that are happening. And that sometimes causes a lot of distress in the community. What's going on there? And why are we seeing all these negative things? And I think we have to turn that again to the positivity and the passion. But over and above that, that's where I think leadership comes in. And to build consensus, to build collegial ways of coming together, to get everybody focused in a direction. We're never going to be 100%. You couldn't get 100% agreement in this room on any one subject. But we try to build a consensus and build collegiality so that we can move forward. And someone has to be there to try to help to do that. To bring people together, and then once it's time to make a decision, make the decision. And help the organization move forward.
Here's a question that we received from about 30 different people. And you've answered it to some extent, but if you could expand upon it. And this is, the success of the military depends on the chain of command. The success of the academy depends on democratic reform and process. Where and how would you gain the necessary training to be a democratic leader?
That's the misperception of where we are here at this point in time, of the maturation process of where I am in the leadership phase. You don't go to the Hill and walk into Senator Noy's office and say, I'm going to tell you what to do. You don't walk into the governor's office and say, this is what we're going to do. You don't walk into a community and say that. You don't walk to those in your charge and say that at this level. It's based on democratic process. And particularly at this level, you have to learn to negotiate. You have to learn to be a diplomat. You have to learn to embrace all of the ideas that are coming to you, or you're going to miss them. I had a mentor once who said, you don't have to be the expert in everything, but you have to surround yourself with experts. People who know. And lean on them to give you the support. Lean on them to give you the confidence to make a decision when you don't know all the answers. And then look to a democratic process to come to those conclusions. But again, it's extremely hard to get everyone to agree to the same thing. And that's the challenge with leadership. It's hard.
Along that line, you mentioned Senator Inouye. Are you the same general who escorted Mrs. Inouye at the senator's funeral? And so please share your acceptance and support among our Japanese and local communities.
I was honored. Senator Inouye, over the years, he loved Hawaii. I've never seen anyone love Hawaii more than Senator Inouye and Senator Kaka. I have great respect for our current senators and congressional delegates. I know them all. But Senator Inouye was special. He was personally special to me. When you talk to a man with that kind of value system, when you talk to a man with that kind of character, you can't help but draw from his strength and his quiet, peaceful demeanor, but the way that he got things done. A man of action. A man who made decisions and moved out when he knew that it was the right thing to do. When Senator Inouye passed, it was hard for all of us. It's particularly hard for those of us who were very close and friends. And I was honored when Mrs. Inouye asked that I escort her and provide the folded flag to her and Ken, Senator Inouye's son. That was one of the most honorable things that I've ever done in my life. And quite frankly, I will remember it for the rest of my life. It was an honor and it was humbling. And I can only hope to be somewhere near that man in the way he led his life someday.
Thank you for that. Fifth, to perhaps order of female college students will be a survivor of sexual assault during their college career. How would you lead the UH system to work towards compliance with the new Violence Against Women?
Sexual assault, sexual harassment, discourage. It even dawned on the fact that another human being would do that to another human being in our own house it's tragic. And it starts with what I said back 30 minutes ago. Treat all people with dignity and respect. Build an environment and an atmosphere where you live and work, where everyone understands that people are going to be treated with dignity and respect. And make sure that gets down to every level. And they understand how passionate you are about it and how you feel about that. And then make sure that nothing is left undone. And here's where a leader has to be careful and where experience counts. If I were to stand up here and say, we are going to do this, every time that happens, there's a lawyer out there that could have used that against us in the investigation, because the leader at the top, unfortunately, can be called as saying, providing undue influence about how a case should be adjudicated. But I can tell you that in every instance where I have had to be the leader, as soon as that instance occurs, they will be investigated to the top priority of what we can do to make sure that we get to it quickly, privately, and the personal concerns of both the accused and the accuser are protected, but that we investigate to the full extent of the law. And everyone on campus needs to understand that, because I believe one of the greatest things that the president has to do is make sure that everybody is working in a safe environment where the other things can occur.
We have a number of questions about philanthropy. Perhaps you could describe what you see your role is in helping find support for the University of Hawaii for giving to the foundation or other funders.
I think that is incredibly important, Mr. President. Now, that's the external piece we're talking about now. The piece that can help everybody get what they need. We're at about the 470 million portion right now for the research. We need to get that to $1 billion. Exercising and bringing the research for the Asia-Pacific shift in renewable energy, in climate change, in agricultural systems, veterinary medicine. I can't tell you how important that is to other nations and what they seek. Health and medical issues and research in those areas. We can bring that. And there are countries that are willing to participate and partner in that in the Asia Pacific, because those are the things that are hurting their people. Those are the things that they are concerned about in all of this. And wouldn't it be great if we could bring that to the University of Hawaii and bring those funds with that research and be able to help on top of that on major issues that are occurring. I think the potential for that is so great, and we should be working that so closely, particularly in these next 10 years.
You've talked a little bit about your vision, and University of Hawaii must become the gem of the Pacific. What 3 steps do you think UH must do to do that, to be the gem of the Pacific region? as you described. And follow up with that, if you could, by how you lead our organization in increasingly changing, in increasingly globally interconnected and turbulent conditions.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot.
That's a lot. Let's try to break that down pretty evenly here.
Let's do the first, and then I'll ask you the second.
Okay, fair enough. Let's work that. Let's start with this. And it has to come from me. If, this is it, okay, if honored to be selected. The first thing that would have to come is the phases that always occur when you take a leadership role. You can't go in there, we're going to change this, we're going to change that. No. You have to do the assessment. And the way that I have always done assessment is not behind the desk, but to get out and walk and see the campuses and to talk to the faculty, to understand what is important to you, to talk to the students, to find out what's important to them. Is it the rising cost of tuition on this particular campus? Is it the inability to get to the campus? Is that important to them? What's important to the administration and the staff at each location? And take about several months to do that assessment and to learn from you. And then to bring in those who can say, here's how we get to the next phase for those things. And then to prioritize, because not everything can be a priority immediately. We have to gauge that. And that takes everybody's input to do that. What's the most important thing? What's going to fall off the cliff if we don't support it right now? Where do we have to surge resources? Where do we have to surge budgetary concerns? Where do we have to surge people? Where do we have to surge passion? To get that up. And I'm not naive enough to think, well, that's happening. Something else is going to be falling. And we have to bring that up. But that's what happens at that level. You have to be able to surge your resources. And you have to be able to first understand, then make the assessment, and then it's time to act. And you have to make decisions. You cannot be stalled in a quagmire. And once the decision is made, you must continue and fix the problem. And that takes supervision, and that takes overwatch, and that takes metrics, and that takes ensuring that the focus remains firm, that we are doing it. That takes effort. But if you do it right, you can bring everyone up to a great level. And you can start to move forward. And start to bring everybody along together to the next level, to your next goal.
You just used the word fix. From a taxpayer's perspective, I'm interested in knowing what you would do as president for more cost-effective planning and construction. We have, during the construction process here, we have a lot of change orders and repairs and that sort of thing, and R&M. Share your thoughts on how you can make some changes.
Yes, one of the things that I do, unfortunately have a lot of experience with is infrastructure. And what it takes to maintain that infrastructure, and what it takes to get into the construction phases for the next level. Because you can't get to that next level if you don't have the infrastructure. You can't bring the research or the funds if you don't have the capability that they want to come to help. We have to demonstrate that. The first thing we have to do, and it's no secret, there is a backlog of deferred maintenance. A lot of deferred maintenance. And the first thing that happens is it's not safe. It's not safe for faculty, it's not safe for students. If it gets to a point where it gets too bad, things are not healthy. We have to make a commitment to get to that deferred maintenance. We have to get to that point of fixing what we have so that we can demonstrate more trust. And then when we fix, because when you have a maintenance issue, and you know this, and just equate it to a car. If you don't do the maintenance on a car, you can take it to a level. And you can bring it back at some point, but when it hits that one point and goes over the fiscal cliff, you can't bring it back. That's what we have to do now. We've got to get those facilities that we have back up to a grade, at least to the point where they're safe and healthy for everyone, and get those facilities up. And then get to each campus, which is different, and say, what's the most important thing? And what's on your CIP program? And where do you need the help? And how do we do that? And how do we distribute that? How do we monitor that? Because it's very difficult to go from the design build phase. Without getting into the engineering part of that, you can design something 1 year, and they will tell you how much it costs. And 2 years later, when you get to build it, it just went up in cost 15%. And you have to go back to redesign and then refinance, and it becomes a do loop. And we never get to it. So how do we ensure that we tighten that up and make sure that once we do a design, we get to immediately do a design build? But that we have to be very sure that this is exactly what we need. It's exactly our priority, exactly where we're going to put our resources, our effort, and our time.
The University of Hawaii system exists for education. Very expensive part of university cost is athletic funding. And there have been discussions whether universities should leave Division I for Division II or whatever, to ensure that perhaps students could receive a high-quality education. Could you share your thoughts on the athletics and that role?
I had that question actually this morning also. And you can see it in the papers a lot lately. There's no question on anyone's mind why the university exists. It's for the education of our sons and daughters, for research, and to move forward in the academic field. Athletics is an extracurricular activity, but it also is very visible. It's visible to the community, visible to the public. They get pride. Athletics also brings certain other functions of teamwork and all those other functions of what occurs there. But it's more important to the community at large. The pride, morale. Everybody's rooting for UH. And it is expensive here because we have to travel. I just read where the state is working towards providing perhaps more funding to help travel. That will help alleviate, I think, some, but it's not going to be enough. It never is. We need to do more for private funding, more to get more help if we want to maintain Division I athletics. The bottom line, it's not going to be one person's decision whether we do that. That's going to have to be a statewide decision, and a community decision, and a university decision as of a whole. Because there is a lot of emotion on both sides, for and against NCAA athletics. That is going to be a group decision, and it will be at the state level.
Here's a perhaps academic freedom question. How would you encourage, discourage, or advise University of Hawaii scientists to stay neutral in the ongoing GMO discussion? Us farmers are not scientists.
Well, I think the first thing I would do is leave it to those who are the smartest that understood it the best. But academic freedom, and I will address this at both a faculty level and at a more macro level of what I've seen. Academic freedom at the faculty level is a necessity. It must happen. We can't go forward without it. I would have never had, instructors who caused me to think, or to question, or to see things in a different light. That's what faculty should be doing, encouraging minds to continue to question and think and move forward, and to make the world a better place, to do things that no one would ever think. You can't do that without that academic freedom. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. That's okay. Matter of fact, being uncomfortable is okay. Because it causes us to do things better. It causes us to think to ourselves, maybe that's not the right answer. Maybe there's a better way of doing things. Maybe the status quo is not the right way to do things. Just because we did it this way last year or the year before, when are we going to ask the question, why did we do it that way? Every time I ask the question why, people know the first answer you get is because. And then the next answer you get is because we did it last year this way. And if you start to peel the onion back, it's because we've always done it this way. And we get stifled in the quagmire of it because it's easy. So academic freedom allows us to jump out of that. And allows us to get to places that we never would have before if we didn't question and think. And then there's the other aspect of academic freedom, which we are so blessed to have. I have been in many countries, and so have you, where education was not a freedom. It was dictated. And to the point where even some people couldn't go to school. An entire gender couldn't go to school. Just because of who was dictating the educational process. We are so fortunate in our country when you see that around the world. And those nations that have embraced education and have embraced the freedom of education, you look at them and you see where they're going. I mean, in the Asia Pacific, Singapore, Japan, South Korea, China. On any given day, China has over 250,000 students in U.S. universities. That has exponentially grown over the last 10 years. The thirst for education, educational freedom is changing daily. And we are blessed that we have that. Now we have to make sure that, like healthcare, education is a right. It should be for everyone. And how do we do that?
The military aura that you bring to this arena, including your recent experiences, are, in this person's words, negative and concerned with the Hawaiian nation and culture that we have here. How would you turn that around? And you also mentioned your Hawaiian friends have taught you a lot about Hawaii. How about share something?
First, I'd like to sit down with who asked the question and tell me why you feel that. It's hard for just us to write that question down and say that because that affects me personally. So I would ask you to sit and talk to me about why you think that. After I try to talk to you about who I am and where I'm trying to go and where would I want to be.
On the hill out of Oaxaca somewhere.
Please come and talk to me and let us talk about why you think that aura is there, because it's not one I want. And I would appreciate that discussion with you. I'm not a perfect person. Far from it. But I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn from my native Hawaiian brethren who are trying to teach me about values. And I'm always scratching the surface. You don't just come here and say for 8 years I'm going to learn this. That's not going to happen. And you all know that better than anyone. But I'm trying to learn that. And I'm so blessed that I have people who are trying to teach me and make me better in that direction. But I would really ask you to tell me why you think my aura is not doing that. Because then I have failed to talk to you in the way that I am trying to proceed forward with my life.
As you know, the university has many campuses. You've touched on some of this already, but how would you inform yourself about the various campuses outside of UH Hilo, which do serve unique student bodies and are located in very, very different communities?
Yeah, I think that's the most exciting part. Extremely exciting. Yesterday was such a great day to be on both Kauai and Maui, and to see the passion of the faculty, the administration, and the staff. And I mean all the way down, to those in the cafeteria. And the way they link to the community, and the different ways they link to the community, the way they have brought in what's unique about each community, because they're all different. And how the campuses have become the meeting place. How people smile on those campuses. And they enjoy so much being a part of the UH system there. And no matter who I saw, they said, well, I'm just passing through, nice to meet you. This is a good place to come see my friend. That is just wonderful. I think the exciting part about all of this is going to be getting to each and every location to talk to as many people as possible. Not only at the campus, but also in the community. And seeing how UH is serving the community in which it lives. And how best to do that for each individual one. It can't be a cookie cutter. You can't do the same for each because they're all different. And I'm excited about that. Being on Leeward this morning was tremendous. And what they do, I can remember when no one lived there. It's not how it is today. And how many people they are serving. And growing every year. That's a wonderful thing. So I'm excited about that. And I think it's going to be great to see more and to learn more. And to have the opportunity to understand what their challenges are and their issues and try to help.
Here's a question about the P20 initiative. Could you share your thoughts on that and the role of the university?
Every week, particularly in the community colleges, a lot of the discussions that we had were about how they would have to really work hard at remedial training and remedial education before people can get to the next level where they can then continue on. And how long that's taking to do that. And how much that's costing to do that. And everyone is working so hard to work together with the DOE, Department of Education, to try to align that better. But just like the campuses are different and the communities are different, all of the pre-education is different. And that's what the teachers and faculty are telling me when I go out to see them. And that is something that I think is incredibly important when we talk about access to education, when we talk about the cost of education. It has to be a synergistic system where all the way to P20 we are making this work. so that it's a smooth transition, or it's never going to be perfect, as smooth a transition as possible for as many people as possible, so that we can graduate our students on time, we can reduce costs, and we can make it better, and they can go forward into the world as our sons and daughters and take on the next generation, and be that engine for not only Hawaii, but for the world.
What kind of things in your various employment situations, what kinds of things have you been criticized for? Kind of share some of the downside here.
Sure. There's enough here. I'm not going to go too far. I have to figure that out. But I think, a lot of that is, unfortunately, misperception. And I hope I can help try to turn some of that. I'm not going to be able to do that in one night. But I hope we can talk. In my younger days, I was hot-headed and quick to jump to conclusions, quick to make judgments about people before I even knew who they were. I hope to do better than that now, and to allow people to talk, and to allow them to give their point of view and their expression before I make a judgment about them. I hope I become a better adult than that. Sometimes I still push back into that, and I wish I did. I wish I were a better husband and son. My wife and I were never blessed to have children, but I do wish that I were a better husband and son. Sometimes work took me away from that, and I was separated for long periods of time, and again, too quick, because it became comfortable. After 34 years of marriage, I get reminded of that pretty often. And it's good because she's my best teacher and my best coach. And I appreciate that. But I wish I were better. My parents, I'm blessed to have them both still alive back here in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And very blessed that they're still alive. But it's hard for me to get back to see them now. I made a conscious choice to live in Hawaii, but I also made a conscious choice to go back and see them every 3 months or so, because I don't want to sit back and say, I wish I had. But I wish I could have done a better son, and do better. And I probably have more faults to fill 3 or 4 volumes, and we could spend the rest of the night on them, but I'm trying to be a better person. I'm trying to learn. And the only thing I can do is continue to work at my faults and try to be better.
Chairman, first, thank you for your service. Topic is education for our military families in Hawaii. There are many men and women in uniform and their families in Hawaii. Share your thoughts on the quality of education and the University of Hawaii system for those persons.
Well, education has become so much more important in the military. And I can't really speak for the military now because I'm not in the military. I'm not current about what they're doing now, but I can talk to you when I was there and what we tried to do. And I can only give you this in the context of when I started in the military and where I finished in the military. You don't have to take it from there. When I first came into the military, it was early 80s, late 70s. And back then, it was sometimes jail or the army for some of these young men and women. And I can remember the first unit that I had, 5 soldiers couldn't write their name. Couldn't balance a checkbook. I had about 12 soldiers that it was jail or the Army. How did that change over 34 years to where now I have young soldiers in the Army who are 22 years old who have master's degrees from MIT? And our senior non-commissioned officer corps have all college degrees at that level. And the selection rate, even to come into the Army, 1/3 of our young people are not even qualified today to come into the Army. Because they don't have the education, abilities. They have, unfortunately, a record. Or what's really disheartening is they're unhealthy. And I'm not just talking about doing push-ups and sit-ups, I'm talking about unhealthy. 2/3 of the population is not even qualified today. But how did we get that way? Well, because we made an investment on education. And we told our soldiers that to even get to a point, you have to have an education. And you have to continue that education throughout your time. And we're proud of that to the point that today, our non-commissioned officers are the envy of the world because of it. And I'm so proud of them because they made a commitment to not only themselves, but to their family and to their country to be better. Because they move so much, it's very important that for them, that their children get the same type of educational opportunities as other children who have a stable home over years. So it's important to them. They used to come to me when I was in the military and say, we need to ensure our children are getting the same type of educational opportunities to go to college. And it becomes a major issue to ensure that. And we work very closely with the states, we work very closely with the departments of education to ensure that that is happening. And I'm very proud to say many of our children are having the same opportunities and getting the chances that other children are getting, even though they move so much. But frankly, that moving really sort of helps them because they get to see more of the world. They get to integrate more. They learn how to make friends. They learn more about growing up. And if they do it well, they turn out wonderful. And it's wonderful to see them grow.
We're running out of time, as you probably can see. And it'd be nice if you could share with us some of your closing thoughts, especially having heard a number of these questions. And following that, I'm sure we have a little bit of time to meet outside and perhaps people can speak directly with you out there with some of the questions.
Look, thank you again for your time. I know it's hard to come out on a Friday night, particularly, like I said at the very beginning, when you've got so much going on here, and it's so hard. For me, you're not going to hear everything that's going to happen in an hour and a half, but it gives all of us an opportunity for you to see us. And then to have others make that decision. I do want to thank you for your aloha and for demonstrating good, solid dignity and respect, and for allowing me to speak to you and be here today with you. I truly appreciate that. I hope to be able to spend some time on the outside to meet you personally and to maybe answer any other questions that you might have that I did not answer before. But from myself and my wife, I wish you much aloha. Mahalo for the evening. Thank you very much.